Now I'm going to request Brother Waleed to please come here and present us with the English lecture.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just humbly request, especially the sisters I know with the children and everything, but it will help us all try to focus, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So inshallah, in continuation in the line of the different topics that we're covering in this Ramadan that are focused on the different dimensions that are involved in preparing for the khuruj of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman that all the mu'mineen have been waiting for the last, 1200 years? Especially now, we earnestly wait for Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. And so the speakers these days, we're tasked with covering one aspect or another. And inshallah, in the few minutes that I have, I'm going to talk about, it's a very broad topic, but we'll try to give kind of main headlines. And of course, within these headlines, each of these, there is just so much to say, but we're just going to give a little scan. But the dimension that I'm going to be talking about is basically how to prepare for the advent and the dhuhur of Sahib al-Asr wa-Zaman through self-purification, tazkiyatun nafs, and through our akhlaq, how we build and improve our akhlaq, tazkiyatun nafs, self-purification. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so when we say what it truly means to wait for the Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, that waiting, we always hear, that waiting should not be a passive waiting. It should be an active waiting. It shouldn't be a waiting where you put your hands, under your chin and, oh Allah, please, hasten his reappearance in such a lazy, non-energetic way. But it should be in a way that is proactive, that is energetic. And so we ask ourselves always, are we ready to fulfill the call when the call is made by Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman? Are we ready? Are we going to be ready just with chants? Are we going to be ready just with the dua al-faraj that we recite all the time? Are we just going to be ready with our Nari Haidaris and our Allahu Akbars and our Ya Husains? Are we just ready with our slogans? All those are important. But at the core of it, in my opinion, and it's also in the belief of the Imams, salamullahi ta'ala alayhim, and the great scholars, that readiness starts from within, from yourself first, from purifying yourself first and foremost with your good character and the purification of that soul, that tazkiyatun nafs. And so my friends, tonight, inshallah, we're going to try to reflect briefly. As I said, this is a very deep topic with so many branches, but we're going to scan it in brief. We're going to briefly talk about the Quranic foundation of this tazkiyatun nafs, this self-purification, and its importance. We will reflect on the importance of the akhlaq in the preparation of the dhuhur of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. And then we'll briefly also talk about the spiritual diseases that antagonize and that block that readiness for Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. And finally, a few tips, practical advice on how we can do this tazkiyatun nafs. It's not an easy task because the temptations are just so much and with us all the time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the foundation of our preparation for Imam Ajalallahu Farajahu Sharif is that self-purification. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Shams says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful indeed is the one who purifies it, the soul, and ruined is the one who corrupts it. And so, my dear friends, this notion of tazkiyah is central to any uruj that we try to do, whether at the personal level, community level, or at the ummah level. Any uruj, meaning ascension, uplifting, upgrade, whatever you want to call it, improving our affair, you start with the tazkiyah to nafs first and foremost. Because we like to focus on the big goals, right? And we get lost in that. And just remember, these big goals, they're not achieved holistically unless the building blocks are set in place. And you and I, my dear friends, are the building blocks. When we individually, in our families, with ourselves, we work on that, you're going to find that it's a domino ripple effect across society. So that will hasten the dhuhur of the Imam and make it a fertile ground for the success of his mission. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. And so, yes, my dear friends, the Imam will establish the adl on earth. يملأ الأرض عدلا قسطا وعدلا كما ملئت ظلما وجورا. He will fill the earth with justice and goodness after it has been filled with so much corruption and filth. But how can there be justice spread if we have corrupted, unjust souls, souls that do injustice to itself? So how are we expected that we're going to be from the soldiers of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman? Isn't that our dua, to be from his soldiers? That's our dua in Dua al-Faraj, that we be one of his soldiers in his company. How, when we ourselves, we do dhulm to ourselves and to our families, and we're filled with injustice. Surah Al-Jum'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. Allah says, He is the one, Allah, who sent among the unlettered a messenger, reciting His verses to them, purifying them, to doing tazkiyah to them, and teaching them the book and the wisdom. That's the basis, my dear friends. The tazkiyah to nafs is the first goal. We can't hop like kangaroos and want to conquer the world. And our ummah will be the greatest ummah. And Shiat Amir al-Mu'mineen will rule the earth with equity and justice, when we can't even rule in ourselves. Ourself is wild and rebellious. And so that is the order of priority. While there's so many dimensions that we have to prepare for and cater to, tazkiyah to nafs, I believe, from the wahy of the Quran and the narrations of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that it is a priority and it is a prerequisite to anything that comes after that. And notice from this ayah in Surah Al-Jum'ah that the order, purification, then knowledge. When a person is purified, or when you purify the ground, then it's going to be fertile to receive the knowledge, to receive the wisdom. If knowledge comes without purification, without doing that prerequisite step of tazkiyah to nafs, potentially it can produce something called kibr, arrogance, and we're going to mention that in a few minutes. If activism, being active and vocal and standing up for the truth and being involved in Islamic projects and in improving the community, if that is happening but without the prerequisite of self-purification, it can end up in a disaster and producing oppression and actually backfiring and hurting the Islamic movement and the Islamic project. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. There's a lot to say in that. The Imam, Salamullahi ta'ala alayhi, our Imam, he needs people of character to be from his disciples. And that's why the notion of the 313, my dear friends, whether it's literal or allegorical, that's not the issue. But it just shows you that it's the quality of the people. It's the quality of the people that are going to shake things. And we see that today, my dear friends. Without going into specifics, it's the quality. How many in the ummah are standing with the truth? It's few. Ummah of 1 billion and something. And even from the Shia of Ali, how many of them? Even from the scholars of the Shia of Ali or the Sada of Ali Muhammad, it's always the few. It's the quality. It's the quality that through that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings victory to his religion. And so Imam al-Mahdi salamullah ta'ala alayhi salam, his harakah, his movement, his disciples is not going to be a harakah, a movement, a people who are filled with anger, who are filled with arrogance, who are filled with hasad and all these spiritual types of diseases. There's no place for people like that in his movement. No matter if their slogan, their name is Ali, and they're Shia or Sunni, or his movement is going to be a movement of pure people, people that have worked on themselves first and foremost. And you see that, my dear friends, in the seerah of the Prophet, from the close companions of the Prophet, Salman and Abu Dharr and Al-Miqdad and Bilal, etc., etc. And you see that from the ashab of the Imams, and specifically the ashab of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. When you look at their biographies, prior to their stand for the truth, prior to the day of Ashura for the ashab of Imam al-Hussein, you find that these people are the purest of people. They've worked to improve themselves, to purify themselves, to reform themselves and their families. Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi ta'ala alayhi has said, أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا. The most complete of the believers in faith are those best in character, the ones who are best in moral character. The Imam could have said the one who performs the most Hajj, the one who performs the most Umrah, the one who goes most to the masjid, the one who gives the most speeches about Islam, the one who prays the most. The Imam gives you the hikmah, tells you if you want to hit the target, it's the akhlaq. The akhlaq is at the core of everything. Everything else is to improve the akhlaq, to make you the best human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that he was of the best moral character, the best of akhlaq. And the Prophet said that I was brought to the people to perfect the akhlaq. إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق, to complete and perfect the best of akhlaq. And so our iman, the level of our iman and our dedication to Islam and to the Prophet and to the Ahl al-Bayt, it should be measured and should be connected to our intensity of the akhlaq, the beauty of our akhlaq. That our akhlaq, the more we show in terms of akhlaq, the more we could say, yes, inshallah, our faith is good. Inshallah, our dedication and our wilayat is strong. And inshallah, when the call comes, that Imam Sahra al-Asr al-Zaman, when he calls, that we are going to be ready to receive that call and hasten, that we leave, we leave and go towards the Imam. And only people who are receptive will be able to answer that call. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. And so what goes alongside, the akhlaq is a package. What goes alongside with akhlaq is a complete set of things. And one of the things is to be a person who has sidq, who is a truthful person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tawbah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, ittaqu Allaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen. O you who believe, have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be with the truthful. Be with the truthful and be truthful. And that's why we are with the Imam, salamullahi ta'ala alayh. And that's why we're always with Imam Ali alayhi salam, because he is from amongst the truthful. He's the embodiment of truth. And so are we also people of, we love truth, but are we people who practice truth, who follow truth in our personal life? If we are people of lying, habitual liars in our business dealings, in the way we talk to our family members, our friends, if we're people that have no truth, then how can we claim to be from those who follow the truth? No way. That's hypocrisy. And so even we think that things are big, we have to be from the truthful. Start with ourselves. We have to start with ourselves. Are we from the muttaqeen and those who have sidq in the qawl, in the action, and in the fa'al? In the qawl, in the words, and also followed up by the fa'al as well, or in the action. Also, as we said, the akhlaq and the tazkiyatun nafs, it's a whole package. And part of that is also adl, justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nahl, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna Allah ya'muru bil-adli wal-ihsan. Allah orders justice. Allah commands justice and excellence. Of course, Imam al-Mahdi, his movement is to fill the earth with justice. The question lies, are our homes filled with justice? Are they? Our families, our homes. Why think big and governments and the Middle East? And start with your home first. Is there justice in your home? Do you deal with your kids justly, with your wife justly? Or your household is just filled with injustice? And then how can you claim that you're going to be following the Imam of justice and helping him establishing justice around the world? Part of that package of tazkiyatun nafs and perfecting the akhlaq is having that mercy, that rahmah, and also humility. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Furqan, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, the servants of the most merciful are those who walk upon the earth humbly. Humble people, modest people. It's antithetical. It's in antagonism to arrogance, kibr, having a high head, not because you're standing up for the truth, no, because it's all about yourself and your ego. It's something personal for you, that you always do the right thing. That kibr, which is something the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the Imams warned against. One of the famous hadith of the Prophet, that the meaning says that a person who has an iota, an atom's weight of kibr will not enter Jannah. He will not be able to see Jannah until that kibr is purified from his soul. And so in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about some of these spiritual diseases. And since we started talking about kibr and arrogance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Baqarah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. He refused and he was arrogant and he became from amongst the disbeliever. Who Allah is talking about? Who? He's talking about Shaitan, Iblis. Iblis, who for years and years worshipped Allah to the point that he became almost from the angels. So he's from those who were created from fire, right? He's from the jinn, but he's from the jinn that was special jinn, to the point that the malaika thought that he was from among them. But he had that disease. It was exposed when the order came to do the sujood to Adam. That spiritual disease that was there was exposed on that day. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, "Ma li ibni Adam wal kibr." What has the son of Adam to do with arrogance? Imam is saying, what's wrong with the son of Adam and him being arrogant? Imam Ali says, أوله نطفة وآخره جيفة. His beginning is a drop of fluids, sperm, semen, and his end is a corpse, is a rotten corpse. What is this arrogance? All these arrogant tyrants tweeting, we assassinated, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. All of them are going to be eaten by the elements of the earth, and they will be forgotten, and they will have to face their misdeeds. And so, my dear friends, again, arrogance. Arrogance blocks our ascension towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's a major hurdle towards our preparation for Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. Individually, if we have that characteristic, we have to work on it. We have to kick it out, eject it. One of the ways is that when you commit a misdeed against somebody, and we do it all the time, none of us are perfect. We hurt people around us. We're human beings. We're not perfect. We're sinners. Go and apologize. That apology will help kick out that kibr. One of the characteristics of mutakabbirin, they will never apologize. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Another spiritual disease that stands in antagonism towards the tazkiyatun nafs and attaining good akhlaq and moral character is the spiritual disease of hasad. And notice, my dear friends, each of these topics it's an ocean. But just to quickly scan and remind ourselves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nisa says, أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Do they envy people for what Allah has given them of His bounty? And so hasad is a disease that many people have. Many of us have that disease where it's this malicious intent towards others. We always look at what others have, and we want that whatever they have is taken away from them out of maliciousness. It's not that, oh, they have good, oh Allah, give us good just like you gave them, out of goodness, right? You like what they have and you ask Allah to give it. No, you want the bad thing to happen to the others. This hasad. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about in the Quran, and it's one of the things that stand in our way for our spiritual uplifting. Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi ta'ala alayhi said, Al-hasadu ya'kulu al-iman kama ta'kulu an-naru al-hatab. Listen to this. He says, hasad, envy, consumes faith just as fire consumes wood. You have all this faith and all these good deeds, it can be burnt with hasad. How many believers have hasad? Because they have allowed this spiritual disease to infest their soul. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And do you think, my dear friends, and I'm asking myself first, do you think an envious heart, a jealous heart, a heart that has hasad, you think that heart will unite with others to be part of the 313 or to be part of that faithful who are going to be with the movement of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman? Another of the main spiritual diseases, and there are many, hypocrisy, nifaq. And our ummah has been afflicted with the spiritual disease from day one. As a matter of fact, the movement of the mu'mineen from the time of Adam has been affected and afflicted with that spiritual disease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa also, إن المنافقين في الدرك الأسفل من النار. The hypocrites, indeed, the hypocrites will be in the lowest depth of fire. They're the worst of the worst. They're the worst than the kuffar, than X, Y, and Z that we know of, these tyrants. They're worse than them. They're the ones who end up giving the report and giving the intelligence so that the leaders and the mu'mineen are harmed. It's because of them, the munafiqeen. Munafiqeen from our own self, from our own people. Imam Ali has warned, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالنِّفَاقِ فَإِنَّهُ يُفْسِدُ الْإِيمَانِ. Beware of hypocrisy, for it corrupts faith. And hypocrisy has many levels and dimensions. It's a spectrum. Some people right away, they go to the extreme spectrum of a person who is really a kafir, but he's making like he's a mu'min. That's at the extreme level. But some of us, and I'm talking about myself, can have some levels of nifaq. When, if for instance, I stand up here and I tell you to do something good, and then I turn around and I'm doing something antithetical to that, something that is opposite to that, that is nifaq. That is hypocrisy. And that's what Imam Ali says, that that's something that will corrupt your faith. Claiming love for the Imam while living a life that is contrary to it, contrary to his mission, to his lofty goals. That is nifaq. And so we have to ask ourselves, is what we say and what we are doing in front of people, is it in sync with what we're doing from behind or with our families and between ourselves? Is our rhetoric in sync with what's inside? Is it running in parallel or not? Or is there something that doesn't make sense? صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. And so another thing we want to mention in brief, we mentioned these several spiritual diseases, and there are many, but I want to move on and talk about the idea of waiting, but waiting in the state of action. So intidhar, but intidhar while being proactive for the advent of Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Imam al-Sadiq Salamullahi Ta'ala has said, this is Imam al-Sadiq, the great grandfather of Imam al-Mahdi, says, من سره أن يكون من أصحاب القائم فلينتظر وليعمل بالورع ومحاسن الأخلاق. Imam al-Sadiq, the sixth Imam, is telling the mu'mineen and telling us across the ages that if you want to wait for the advent of the Imam al-Mahdi, the Imam al-Mahdi, there's still, 6 Imams to go, and he's telling us generations later, he says, whoever wishes to be among the companions of that 12th Imam, of Al-Qa'im, the one who will rise, should wait and act with taqwa, piety. Actually, wara is like even a higher level of taqwa, and I will explain it in a second. Act with a higher level of taqwa, it's called wara, and noble character. وَمَحَاسِنُ الْأَخْلَاقِ, and that goes back to the idea in the beginning of my talk, is that is the prerequisite of being from the movement of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, that perfecting our akhlaq. And so waiting should be paired with action. And yeah, we think big action, let's go to the masjid and form communities and go protesting and, right? We think action is like that. It is, of course, but the prerequisite, and before that, the action should be working on ourselves. And so in this hadith of Imam al-Sadiq, he says, you're going to wait? Actively wait. How? Wara. What is wara? Wara. Waw, ra, ayn. This is a higher level of taqwa. It's a higher level of taqwa. You're God conscious to the level that even if there's anything that is close to something that may anger Allah, even from afar, you're far, far, far away from it. You don't come near it. For example, yes, you should not drink alcohol. Of course, you're not going to drink alcohol, right? And you shouldn't be at the table where alcohol is served. Wara will be, I'm not even going to be near the liquor store. I'll drive away from it. Not that, okay, I'm in the restaurant, I'm not sitting at the table of the alcohol, but I'm sitting at the other table. It's a higher level of taqwa. And that's the Imam said, work on yourself to achieve that higher level. And of course, also in the hadith, to work on perfecting our akhlaq. And it's something that we have to do. Nobody could do it for you, because you have to work on yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah does not, and this is Surah Al-Ra'd, indeed Allah does not change the condition of people until they change what is within themselves. And this is at the collective ummah level. You see, the ummah level, what we have reached, that level where Muslims are fighting Muslims in the month of Ramadan, where only a few mu'mineen are standing in front of the tyrants and the rest of the ummah is watching, not just watching, but actually harboring the enemy from within by offering basis for. You see, the ummah, what level we've reached? Allah's not going to change our state until each and every one of us changes the state of our own affairs. We have a problem individually that we have to work on. And so, my dear friends, as we are wrapping this up, and this is a huge topic, as we said, and we're just scanning it in brief, how can we do things that are practical in the way of self-purification, tazkiyatun nafs, and uplifting our akhlaq? Imam al-Kadhim says, Salamullahi ta'ala alayh, and his grandfathers and his progeny, he says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يُحَاسِبْ نَفْسَهُ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. He says, he's not from us who does not take account of himself every day. And I start with myself, if we can daily take a daily log before we sleep, make a daily log and see, how did we do today? Our akhlaq, our level of anger, our responses, our level of ghibat, our level of hasad, kibr, all these things. How is it? Like, how many times we're smiling to people, doing good? If on a daily level, we're doing this muhasabat al-nafs, this self-accounting, this is something that can help if we do it at a daily level and not wait for Ramadan to do it, not wait for Laylatul Qadr to do it. Oh, I'm sorry. Or wait for right before we go to Hajj. Everybody, I'm sorry. I call up the people that. Why can't daily we see, did I disrespect somebody, or maybe they felt bad? I can go apologize. My wife, maybe I said something she may have misunderstood. Let me try to clear the. If we do the self muhasabah, it will help in that regard. My dear friends, controlling the tongue. This muscle right here, that is a muscle that constantly sins. Constantly sinning and against Allah in a variety of forms. And so a lot of the injustice that we do and the ghaibat and all these things and the hasad, it's from the lisan, is the one that's undertaking it. And so we have to watch that tongue. Control that tongue. Rein it in like you rein this wild horse or this wild bull. You think before we speak, and alongside it's not just the physical tongue nowadays. There's the tongue, the digital tongue, right? Watch before you click on the thing and right away respond and say unjust things and falsehood things and just spread falsehood, ghibat and namima. We have to watch our tongue. Serve others, my dear friends. Helping others. So that idea of service, how are you going to just sit home and say intidar, Allahumma ajjal farajahu? And we think that all of a sudden we're going to be so active and so proactive and so energetic where we're not used to it. It's like a person who's like, yeah, when the time comes and I have to, play that soccer game, and I'm going to do it. But right now, I don't need to. Yeah, when the time comes, you're not going to be able to. You're going to drop dead from a heart attack. You're not going to have you have to work it out, right? Work out that sense of service to others. And it starts with your own selves, your own family. It starts with the community. Be involved in your community. Whatever your community is, Dari, Zainab, any other community, be involved. Volunteer. That's the sense of volunteerism. Service without asking any reward. That's sense of service. The more sense of service that you partake in and your kids partake in, you're going to be in a better place and much better receptivity when the time comes and when the call comes. There's so much to say, but finally, because the time is limited, the dua, al-faraj, and there's dua al-ahd, the dua of the covenant. If we read it daily, if not daily, weekly, if not weekly, monthly, if not check it out, duas.org. That dua of the you're making that oath of allegiance every day, and through that dua, you'll see that there's, inshallah, some tazkiyatun nafs happening, some spiritual connection to the Imam and making dua. And so, in conclusion, my dear friends, are we ready if the Imam reappears tonight? Or are we going to make 1,001 excuses? It's excuses because we're not ready, because we haven't fulfilled all the prerequisites, right? All the building blocks are not there. How are we going to reach the pinnacle? And so, do we have truthful hearts? Question mark. Are we ready? Do we have humble souls? Question mark. Are we ready? Are we just individuals? Are we adil individuals? Are we ready? Are we merciful individuals? We have rahmah. Are we ready? Are we people that are free from ghibat and hasad and kibr? Are we ready? And so the question is not when the Imam is going to, what are the signs? What are we get obsessed by? Is this the sign? This is the sign. This is the sign. Not when the Imam will come. When are we going to be ready? When is it that we're going to be ready? And so, my dear friends, let's make this earnest dua, especially on this night, the day of the shahada, of the time of the shahada of Sayyidah Khadija, salamullahi ta'ala alayh, who achieved that tazkiyatun nafs and that moral character. And that's why she was ready to be a safety net and a support for her husband, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. We say, Allahumma ja'alna min ansarihi wa a'wanihi wal mustashhadina bayna yaday. Oh Allah, make us from his helpers, his supporters, and those who become shaheed in his way. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.